Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saeed Tahda. I'm the head of the Global Road Safety Facility. On behalf of the World Bank and my colleagues from WRI, I would really welcome you for the launch of this guide for safe speeds. This is a accumulation of long journey and hard work between many partners, led by Alina and Claudia from the World Bank and from WRI. And we are very happy and pleased that we got the opportunity to time the launch during Transforming Transportation. I don't have much to say besides welcoming you, thanking you, and hopefully you are already ambassadors of road safety, but maybe after the launch of the speed, you take more the speed more into your work. This is a very practical guide on how to take speed limit into strategies, policies, implementation, and how to set speed limits. Without further delay, we may wait a bit for the panel to be completed, but I would give the floor to my colleague, Claudia, and I would like to thank you, Claudia, for all this partnership. This has been an accumulation of work for many years. So thank you very much, and we would welcome everybody, and hopefully you will join us in this launch and enjoy it. Over to you, Claudia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Said, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Claudia Driassol Style, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Urban Mobility Program at WRI and the Director of the Health and Road Safety Program. And I'm very pleased to welcome you for the launch of the speed guide, for the guide for safe speeds. And before we get started, I just want for you to, for just a minute, close your eyes and think that you are a child carrying your backpack and you are walking along a road that doesn't really have a good sidewalk. It comes a moment where you have to cross the road. There is no traffic light for you, and you just see and feel those cars passing by very fast. You just have to look for an opening in the traffic and then run. Now you can open your eyes. Was that comfortable? Was that enjoyable? Did it feel safe? This is the journey that every child in the developing world that walks to school has to go through. And not only children, elderly people, and in general, people that have to go to work, that have to just manage themselves across those very dangerous urban spaces. The reason why we have that is because we have built our cities, our urban environments, thinking that most of the people drive a car and they are protected by a big, iron piece from getting hit by a vehicle. But that's not the case for everyone. So with this guide, what we want to say today is we can do much better. And it is so important that both organizations, the World Bank and the World Resources Institute, have joined forces to say, look, the way we are setting speeds in urban areas and in rural roads as well has to be rethought. It is not possible to be losing so many lives. In India, 72% of the people that die because of high speeds. So this is something that replicates in many, many other countries. The safe system approach, which is at the core of this guide, what it does is basically call us to be more human, to think about the well-being, to understand that we as humans make mistakes, and a mistake should not take our life or our health away. So when you look at this guide, you will find many solutions. You will find a full section that speaks about the why, because when you are thinking about managing speeds, in many cases reducing speeds, we were just talking earlier this afternoon with our colleagues from Brazil, where speeds in urban areas are set at 80 kilometers per hour. Imagine, right? What is a safe speed? A safe speed is 30 kilometers per hour when we talk about urban areas. And why is 30 kilometers per hour? Because at that speed, 10% of people will die and 90% of people will survive. So it's not a perfect speed, but it will save many, many lives. The reason really is because our bodies have not been built to be able to absorb kinetic energy, speed, and that's why we are so vulnerable. Now, it is very hard for us to understand the power of speed. Why? Because our brains have not really evolved to be around speeds, these type of speeds. Only 100 years ago, since the automobile was invented, we have been exposed to these very high speeds. So today, as we launch this guide, I'm gonna guide you in an exercise. Yeah? We are gonna have a ladder that will help you go all the way to the top, and then each of you will jump. And then we will see what is the result of that. So please, the ladder. I don't think I'm going to have a lot of volunteers, so maybe don't bring it. But my point here is, if you were to go that high and jump, that will be comparable to being hit at 30 kilometers per hour. And why I'm telling you this? Because you understand very well altitude, and that's why you laugh and you are like, no way, I'm not going to join you in that exercise. But if I tell you, let's go for a walk, it's a beautiful day, a little chilly, but let's walk on Pennsylvania Avenue, where cars are going definitely higher than 30 kilometers per hour. You will feel the same fear. Because when the vehicles are passing at those very high speeds, we don't feel that fear. So understanding speed is very hard for us, and it's very hard for decision makers. They think, and they will tell you when you are trying to work with them, what do you want? My city is already very slow, it's congested. We cannot reduce the speeds. So this guy will help you to have the research, to have the points that you need, to be able to discuss with those decision makers and to guide them slowly, because it's a political process what they will have to face. I just want to say that I'm very grateful for the partnership with the World Bank. It's been quite a lot of work, but it has been really great in the road. We have learned a lot, and we are ready to give this guide to cities and countries to really save lives. With that, I thank you very much for being today with us, and I want to invite our panel. So please, Liz Jones, if you can join us here. Becky Babinger. I'm not sure if we have Marcela Silva yet. She might be coming. And we have Roger and Benasser. All right. And I will sit there. All right. So thank you very much. And we will wait a little bit for Marcela to come. These days are very busy, and there is a meeting of all the transport managers. So Marcela should be joining anytime. But before that, let's get introductions. So I'm just going to ask you, each of you, to give a very brief introduction of yourself. Benasser, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Claudia, for this invitation. My name is Benasser Boulajul. I am Director General of National Road Safety Agency in the Kingdom of Morocco.
Thank you very much, Benasser. And Roger?
Yes, I'm Rogier van den Berg. I'm the Global Director for the WRI Ross Center for Sustainable Cities. Let me say that I'm super proud, and Claudia, thank you for your leadership here on this guide. My entire life, I've worked on cities, and now with the best, I consider the best team in the world. We are in 12 geographies working with cities, improving the lives of people.
Thank you, Rogier. Becky?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Becky Bavinger. I'm with Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is one of the funders of this guide, which we're really honored and privileged to be able to support. And I'd also like to mention that I am a pedestrian and a bicyclist.
Very important, Becky. Thank you. Liz?
Hello, my name is Liz Jones, and I'm the Senior Transport Advisor within the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, which was previously DFID, for those that don't know. We also are very pleased to have supported GRSF and WRI with co-funding with Bloomberg for this product.
Thank you very much, Liz. And without further ado, let's get started. And I would like to start with you, Becky, because I know that Bloomberg Philanthropies has been working quite a bit on speed. So tell us in what regions, in what cities you are working, and how is the speed work going on in the places where you focus?
Thank you, Claudia. So for those that don't know, Bloomberg Philanthropies is the private foundation of Michael Bloomberg. He was first and foremost a businessman and then a 3-term mayor of the world's best city, New York City. And yes, and now a philanthropist. So we've been working on top public health issues around the world that affect mostly low and middle income countries since 2007. That's when we piloted our road safety work. We've since been focusing on both national policies to meet best practice recommendations that the World Health Organization sets out, but also supporting cities to implement those policies. And so we currently work in 27 cities across 15 countries with a comprehensive package that, as Claudia said, adopts the safe system approach. We also are working with civil society organizations to advocate for better policies that meet those WHO recommendations. And then lastly, but really integral, is our vehicle safety work, where we are supporting Global New Car Assessment Program to support 4 different emerging markets with crash testing vehicles and advocating for vehicle safety standards like intelligent speed assist that we know will save lives. In terms of how the work on speed is going, I would say, honestly, it's mixed. We know it works. We know that it saves lives, but there's still some political hesitancy to really be bold in actions, both from the national policy level, but also from mayoral level. There's a lot of myth that this will cause congestion, that the public won't support them in a re-election campaign, primarily, if they do things like reduce speed limits or instruct their enforcement agencies to actually enforce speed limits that exist, or if they invest in traffic calming measures to make their roads safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and vulnerable road users. However, in those cities where it works, for example, Bogota, Addis Ababa, Fortaleza, these are cities that really have taken bold action on speed management. We see that it becomes a virtuous circle where we do save lives. Sometimes they start in areas that are more neutral, like around schools or around hospitals, and then they can have a wider impact. But we do see it reduces crashes, fatalities, and serious injuries, and then the public starts to want more of it, and they demand more of it. And then we even see political candidates putting it in their platform that they want to have safer roads. So I would say, though, overall, it's mixed.
Very good. Thank you very much, Becky. We know it's a tough cookie, but we are so grateful that you are supporting and working very hard on that. And welcome, Marcela. So, no, we just got started, and we're very grateful that you are making time for us. I know you have a very busy agenda, and so we want to welcome you and first ask you if you could introduce yourself very briefly.
Sure. Thank you so much, and my sincere apologies for running late. I was in another event that was running a little bit late, but I wanted to make sure that I had the time to come and talk about this very important agenda. And thank you so much, Claudia and Said, for inviting me. And I'm very happy to be on this very important panel. My name is Marcela Silva. I am the Regional Director for Infrastructure in the World Bank covering the Latin American region.
Wonderful. So happy to have you with us, Marcela. Welcome. So we'll continue with the conversation. And Roger, you are an architect and you design cities, and now you work as the director of the Cities program. What is the relationship between designing cities and speed?
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for your leadership, and thanks for the partners and the generous contributions to make this happen. This is really extremely important work, and I like very much the subtitle because it's about saving lives and it's about improving livability, right? And so it is not only about the number 30 that you see there projected on the street, right? It is about how we think about our cities and how we create more attractive cities. And there's a correlation, and there's research and practical experience on the correlation between speed management, planning, road design, safety, and livability. And don't worry, I'm not going to give a full lecture, right? But just a couple of things. So we've seen, proximity. If we think differently about our cities and we create spaces with more proximity of services, provides a complete different opportunity and different options for multimodal transportation. You can walk, you can bike. I think the whole idea of the 15-minute city has been really rising in importance and relevance, being adopted by many mayors. This is about creating a proximity of services around where you live and where you work. So, and that has to do with how we plan our cities, right? This is how do you think and how do you plan land use? Land use is a very complex thing in cities, right? You have to be pretty bold in addressing, in identifying where which functions of the city will sit. And in terms of the role of cities and mayors, there's also a role in getting, acquiring the land timely, because our cities are growing rapidly, at least in Africa and in Southeast Asia. So land use planning is key to it, to create this more proximity of services. And then you have density, and density is always the city leaders and decision makers, they hate the word density, so actually you should actually avoid it, because density is always referred to as Hong Kong, right? The high skyscraper is completely, it's absolutely not true, right? So if you create cities of 3, maximum 4 layers high, in pleasant streets with trees, with space for bikes, pedestrians, public transportations, and cars, you can create a compact, dense city. And the density is only needed in order to make sure that you have a grocery around the corner and that you can run public transportation systems. And therefore, you don't need Hong Kong, right? So I think that combination of land use planning and density management is something that lies actually in the capabilities of city planners and city leadership. So and then the leadership is very important because, and we've seen some good examples, the leadership to really change the planning and design. And design is also how we deal with the profile of streets, right? So if you look at that, I'm looking at, because the projection is there, there's the projection, sorry. That's the projection of Madrid I just heard. And you can imagine, I'm an avid biker, and I'm Dutch, so that's almost logical. But and I bike everything here in DC, but you can see that if you would bike on that 30-kilometer zone, ooh, that is still tricky, huh? So you see the cars and the bus, and if you're squeezed, then that is where you have to be very careful. So how you design the street in terms of pedestrian walkways, in terms of nature, we heard Claudia Lopez saying yesterday in Transforming Transportation, if you create green corridors with public transportation, nature, bike paths and sidewalks, people will use it. It is more inclusive and it will become safer. And so I think separate bike lanes is some key thing. And to end with, to come back, so to get this package together, we're capable of doing it. Architects and planners know, generally speaking, how to do it. But it is the leadership in cities that need to take the bold action. And For example, Paris is a good example where 30 kilometers being adopted in 60% of the city. But that goes together with the beautiful design of streets, separated bike lanes, and greening corridors. And that is, many of you would say, yeah, Paris, that's an example. But it's not an easy example, right? You know, the Parisians love their cars and they love to drive fast. And it's extremely the amount of aggression that Anne Hidalgo has, you know, seen by implementing these design and planning propositions within the city is immense. But in the end, and I come back to Claudia Lopez, what you design, that's what people will use. So I'm leaving it there. I'm almost lecturing, so I'm not doing that, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rogier. And I hear that you are talking about creating attractive environments. So apologies for this use of this word, but you know, we don't want the ones that work in speed management to be quote unquote the party poopers. We want to really convert that and say, hey, you can do something much better than this. You can create really an attractive place. You can create streets that serve the vehicles, but serve everyone too and save lives. So I think that is one of the challenges that we have. All right, and I want to go to you, Liz, because you represent the UK government, and the UK government is one of the few governments in Europe that focuses on supporting transport globally, and you do it because transport and poverty alleviation have a very strong relationship, and within your portfolio for many years, you had road safety. So I would like to hear from you how speed plays a role within the work that you do and how that links to economic growth.
Thanks very much, Claudia. So as Claudia says, then the UK has supported transport research in low-income and middle-income countries for many decades now. At the moment, some of that transport research work spans high-volume transport, urban transport, low-carbon, rural access, and modelling and systems. Across all of those, then road safety is a core area, a cross-cutting area that we encourage all our programs to work on. We're really pleased to have supported GRSF, and through GRSF, a lot of the setting up of things like the Africa Road Safety Observatories and the Asian and Pacific Road Safety Observatories. As a government, then we feel it's really important to make sure that we have as much data and information and evidence to base the decisions around road safety and transport planning on. So we have also initiated within the World Bank a program of transport impact evaluations, and one of the 4 key themes there is on road safety. So that's been working very closely with GRSF and looking at real-time impact evaluations of road safety in large transport programs, trying to use innovative technologies and big data. I think it's helpful to recognize again the excellent work of lots of our partners of African and Asian road authorities, obviously of Bloomberg and WRI, World Bank, IRAP. There are many of us working in partnership on this important issue. I know we know, and we're sort of speaking to the converted here, but you know, we still need to, I think, remember that, you know, as Claudia asked us to do right at the beginning, to close our eyes and imagine that we're a child walking on an unsafe road or an unsafe environment, then still there are 1.2 million people dying each year, and 50% of those are cyclists. Or pedestrians, motorcyclists, and all of these are either mothers or children, brothers or sisters. And I think sometimes the statistics don't help us to recognize the impact that it has on economy, as Claudia was saying, but also on people's lives. So thinking about economies at a macro level, but also economies of individual households and how these impacts, whether it's a severe disability that might happen or a death in a family, then how that actually can plunge families into poverty. If we think about this new guide, which is fantastic to be launching today, then I think there it says that that 50% of those fatalities and serious injuries are due to speed. Bloomberg, I can't quite remember, but I think it was in about 2018, with GRSF launched a report on the economic toll of high toll. The economic toll of road injuries and road deaths. And I think within that, then it suggested that if we could reduce the fatalities and severe injuries by 50%, then we'd be looking at between 15 to 20% GDP increases in GDP per capita. So if we're thinking about increases in economy, then we've got the speed, which we know how to do it, we know what we need to do, but as my colleague here said, sometimes we don't have quite the political motivation to be able to do that. So I think we need to really be working still in partnership to think about those levers and how we actually do instigate these safe speeds. Claudia mentioned, but in the UK, then particularly in Wales and in Scotland, then there have been moves much more towards lower speed restrictions in cities, and I think that's a real positive. Similarly, I think we heard yesterday or the day before from Transport for London in the Transforming Transportation Conference about these new technologies that, I've forgotten the name of them, but the new technologies that you can put on buses so that the London buses can actually only go at a particular speed. So that actually it means that we're reducing speed on those London buses, and so that also is another step forwards within the UK. But if you'll allow me, then it's quite good to kind of reflect. I've now been with FCDO and DFID before that, working on infrastructure and transport for almost 27 years. And I think it's really time now that we know what we need to do. This guide sounds a very practical and pragmatic way forwards. And I think we really need to all, as a community, now come together and think about how we really instigate these changes and do that through, thinking about sort of a political economy almost lens of how we can actually encourage this to be instigated. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Liz. And yes, sadly, high speeds equal poverty. And what you said is, a family that is already struggling, having somebody lost in the family or with a severe injury just plunges that whole family into the poverty. So this work that we are doing is also poverty alleviation. Thank you very much, Liz. And Marcela, the World Bank has been working quite a bit on road safety, and I know that in your portfolio you have seen already work going on speed, which is incredibly, good. So I want for you to tell us the work that you have been leading and how that relates to the wider objectives of the World Bank.
Thank you so much. And as I said, thank you again for the invitation, and congratulations to all of you for launching this very important new guide for safe speeds. I think that this is a very important discussion, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I would start by saying that road safety is at the heart of what we do, the World Bank. It's at the heart of the development agenda. because, or given that every preventable death and road traffic injury has an enormous impact on the economy and productivity of a country, and of course in terms of the preservation of its human capital. So it is at the core of what we do. It's the part of the development agenda. So this is why, of course, road safety is a corporate priority for the World Bank. It's an integral part or an integral aspect of every single road or urban transport operation that we finance, because we believe sincerely that the cost of inaction is too high, particularly when we know that there are available vaccines, somebody used that term, to deal with this preventable health issue. So today's conversation, and this guy in particular, is very relevant because we know that within the toolbox of available measures or vaccines to reduce the number of fatalities and serious injuries, I believe that speed management is perhaps one of the most cost-effective measures that there are, no? Particularly where we are working in a region where the needs and the investment gaps in infrastructure are so big that finding cost-effective solutions is critical. So what are we doing in Latin America and the Caribbean region around this sort of pillar of action to support countries to address road safety? Our interventions are geared in two dimensions. One is, of course, the design and implementation of effective policies, regulations, and all the way towards supporting investments in urban and rural roads projects, and interventions that go all the way from capacity building, knowledge sharing, training, supporting new legislation that is needed to promote certain initiatives that we know that are effective, all the way to physical investments in infrastructure, but also in equipment that is necessary, supporting the capacity building to enforce, and so on. So I think it's a combination of measures that we are supporting across the region. And all in all, what I think that when we are designing projects with our clients or with our partners in every country, what we are trying to always bring into mind these considerations for to ensure that the transport projects, whatever they be, rural, urban, mass public transport, not motorized transport, have these considerations for road safety and particularly for speed management internalized in the way that things are done. So a couple of examples that things that we are working on with in some of the countries. In Lima, we are developing a traffic management and sustainable transport program, a long-term program that is implementing the first automated traffic violation detecting system, has a series of measures to identify hotspots, has a series of measures to improve public health and build a livable city environment through traffic calming zones, las supermanzanas. All of these aiming to promote a modal shift, because one thing that we have in our minds is that public transport is fundamental to avoid people moving back into private cars. So, but in order for public transport to be effective, we need to ensure that public transport is not only affordable, but it's also safe, and so on and so forth. In Brazil, we have lots of engagements, and here Brazil is a huge, of course, country, and so we have different engagements at all the levels, at the federal level, at the state level, at the city level. And this, we are working from recommendations for enhanced speed management at the institutional level, all the way to helping states to purchase speed management equipment, the development of low speed road designs solutions, In Rio, in particular, we prepared, or as part of a programmatic development policy loan to the municipality of Rio. We are supporting policy actions that are related to improving road safety around school areas. No, so providing technical assistance to help. Their road safety, Safe Roads to Schools program, which includes road safety audits around a certain number of schools, putting in place traffic calming measures and other measures that are needed to ensure that the recommended 30 kilometers per hour speed is achieved around schools, which is fundamental to what you were saying, Claudia, to ensure that the livelihood or the lives of our future generations. In many other countries, we are providing technical assistance to support changes in the legislation, as I was saying. For example, to help improve processes around speed limit setting the speed limits, like what we are doing with WRI in Rio. Or in Colombia, where we have been working with the National Road Safety Agency on its speed management strategy and also a methodology to set up the speed limits. In Paraguay, our team has been conducting readiness assessments for the implementation of speed management strategies with a pilot for purchasing and implementing speed cameras. Along some of the corridors that we are financing under one of our operations. Similar work in Buenos Aires, where we have supported the city on average speed control analysis and then regulatory changes that are needed to implement and to roll out these approaches. And so I think that those are kind of just some of the examples of the things that we have been working on. And on top of that, of course, with the support of the GRSF, with the support of in partnership with WRI, we are also promoting training and knowledge sharing, and we have done several training courses for leadership on road safety and speed management, and also to practitioners around the region. So I think that this is a little bit of kind of a wide set of initiatives, but very much with the focus of working on speed management. And then maybe the last point, just to end, I think that the other thing that we are very interested and keen to understand a little bit better is what are the other co-benefits between speed management and, for example, reduction of CO2 emissions. And so we are starting to investing a little bit to understand what is that correlation and, get the double whammy. For one side, reduce traffic fatalities and injuries, but also contributing to the decarbonization agenda. Thank you, Claudia.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marcela. And it's so good to hear all the work that the World Bank is already doing, focusing on speed management. I think we all, the ones that were at TT, love how Claudia Lopez addressed this topic, right? So she said, if you continue building highways in cities, what you will have is very high speeds of vehicles. But if you build green corridors for more people to use mass transportation, to walk, to cycle, that's what you are going to get. So the fact that the World Bank is really focusing on this new way to see urban areas, and I love the work that you are doing in Lima, is so holistic, and at some point you should tell us more about that particular project, but it's really good to see all this progress. And I would like to go to Benacer. Benacer is not only going to host the next ministerial conference on road safety, and you will tell us when, but I also want to talk about the speed in Morocco as the challenges and opportunities that you see there. You are the lead of the Road Safety Agency in Morocco. So how do you see speed? And then you can tell us about what is coming up in the ministerial conference.
Thank you, Claudia, for this invitation. And first of all, I would like to thank all organization behind this work. And I will allow myself maybe to thank you on behalf of of all lead agencies here and maybe those who are not here, because I know how this document is very, very important for us, for practitioners. I like also the title. You are talking about safe speed. In general, when we talk about speed or when we think about speed, we say that we have to reduce speed. And here we say that safe speed. That means there is an optimum you have to check for, which is very, very important. Also when you are, responsible for road safety in your country, the main reason you are there is to improve safety in your country. And for that, you have to look to all, risk factor. And they contribute maybe to increase the number of crashes in our country. And if you look to those contributors or the risk factor, there is a speed there. Speed is very, very important, and maybe is the most of them, the most important risk factor. So to reduce speed, or maybe to deal with speed, it's not very easy. If we look to our statistic, you see that you have around 70% of fatalities are among vulnerable road users. And if you look also to scientific, from research, all we know that speed is a major factor of risk. And we know that if you reduce speed, the average speed by 1 kilometer per hour, you will reduce maybe the number of fatalities by 5%, which is very important. We know also that the risk to be killed in crash between car and pedestrian at 50 kilometers per hour is around 85%. And this risk may be increased to 100% at 70 kilometers per hour. That means speed is very, very dangerous, mainly in cities, mainly where when we have mobility of vulnerable road users. Unfortunately, when you try to deal with this issue in cities, it's not very easy, because in general in cities, local authorities, they are thinking about how to make traffic more fluent. So they need more capacity. And for that, they made very, very wide streets. And wide streets are very, very dangerous. And you cannot maybe respect the speed limit within this kind of infrastructure by just putting a signal for 40 or for 30 kilometers per hour. Traffic signs cannot be respected if they are not credible. So this is why we have to work on building capacity. You have to change the mindset you have even among citizens, because we are facing also the social acceptance of the right speed. So that's, I think, we need to work together with the municipalities on building capacity to show them how they can put right traffic signs, using studies, using maybe looking to the risk, and so on and so on. And what we know, that there is a lack of this kind of documents, in general, when local authority, when a municipality want to make some kind of management of the infrastructure, they call for a consultant company, they propose them maybe the proposal, and then we come to the implementation without any, consideration for the level of risk. And I know that there is a lack of this kind of document, and this will be very, very helpful for many cities on the ground. And also, I think to reduce speed, you need also to convince politicians and decision makers, because it's not easy for them. The problem is the problem of behavior, and almost we continue to blame the behavior of road users. That's why I think we have these two big challenges: how to convince decision maker to put the right speed, the safe speed, and also how to convince also citizens that this speed is very safe for them. Because in general, in our life, we do a lot of mistakes per day, and there is no problem. But the crash comes only one time, and it could be very, very risky. So I think it's a very big issue. We have to continue and we have to work and we have to communicate with all safe community and all stakeholders. And that's need, as you mentioned, you need devoted person, you need passionate person, and you have to believe that what you are doing is right and is in good way. And it's not easy, but it's how we say it, it's very important to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benacer. And can you tell us if in the conference, in the ministerial conference, you will address speed, and can you also tell us when will happen?
Yeah, I think this document it comes in the right time because now we are working together with WHO and we are building the program, the agenda of the conference. Next April 26, we will have the next meeting of a high-level committee established with WHO and with the global stakeholders, and I hope you will be there also. So we can, it's a proposal, I think we have to advertise this document. This document must be known as much as we can among safe community.
Excellent. We will do it, Benacer. Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge that here in this room we have a lot of practitioners that have been working on speed and leaders. Matt Sokebelin has been working for many, many years on speed and has helped us understand what is the importance. We have Tony Bliss that is with us as well, Alex Talon that comes from London. We have Diego that is working right now on data, big data and speeds. Lots of work that, and interest in this room. So before I let you go, I just want for you to tell me one word when you think about speed and what will happen after this guide. What comes to your mind? Okay? And I'm going to start with my boss, Roger.
Safe speeds or speed?
Safe speeds, of course. Yes.
Joy.
Okay.
Sorry. Livability.
Good.
Joy.
Becky?
I'll say accountability.
I like it. Liz?
I'll actually just say safety.
Good. Benacer?
Welcome speed, slow down.
Good. Marcela?
I would say reduced, reduced the speeds.
I love it. Thank you very much. Please help me to thank my wonderful panel. All right. And now I have the pleasure, thank you, of welcoming the technical panel. Alina Burlaku, please. And we have Eva Eichinga and Sibel Samra. And joining us from Australia, Blade Turner. Wonderful.
Well, I think we're going to stay here. I'm not sure if this is Is it working? Yes? Okay. So maybe I'll just put this here. Can you hear me well? Hi, everyone. So we'll make this the second part of the event a bit more informal. I'll just be here showing some slides, and then we'll have each of our co-authors coming in and share some of the slides. You will be hearing from the four of us. Claudia is also, we are 5 co-authors for this publication. 5 co-authors but also I want to acknowledge, and you'll see in the guide, we have more than 40 experts that have been reviewing the guide in this past few years, reviewing and contributing to making sure that the guide is including the best practice out there. We have lots of case studies that we would like to share with you, and making sure that we're sending the right message. I'll try to not insist too much. We've been discussing a lot on why speed matters. And if there is one thing that I would like us to remember from this slide and from this information is the fact that 1% increase in speed means 4% increase in fatality risk. It's just as simple. 1% increase in speed, 4% fatality risk increase. It's also the same, it's also available the other way around. 1% decrease in speeds leads to 4% decrease in fatality risk. And that's why we created this guide. That's why this is the main idea in the guide. While we've been putting together information about speed management, we were actually able to come up with some figures, and we looked at India and New Zealand, where we actually saw that speed is responsible, is the biggest single contributing factor to deaths, road deaths, and serious injuries. But in some of these countries, it's actually responsible for 60-70% of the road fatality, and that's something that it's striking. It's the main contributing factor. So, and as Marcela was also mentioning, it's really good we have these safety benefits, but also to look at the co-benefits, and that's actually what we're also doing in the guide. Maybe some of you will be wondering why a new speed management guide? We have so many resources already, and indeed we do have resources already. What we try to do is to review the resources available, to learn from the work that both WRI and World Bank we've been doing in the past years, learn from those case studies, and use the latest research available to develop something new in line with what is happening right now with the traffic, with the needs, and with the trends in terms of policies. So there are a lot of guides. Basically, this new guide is for safe speeds, not 100%, not necessarily lower speeds. It's safe speeds. It's meant to make sure to look at a road and have the right speed, the safe speed for it. So that would be the novelty of the guide, and also in terms of the why this guide, and I think that probably was one of our main challenges, because we covered in this guide, it has 138 pages, we covered from shared streets where speeds should not be higher than 10 kilometers per hour, up to motorways. So this guide covers all types of roads, all types of road users, from vulnerable road users to motorized, also all types of speed limit changes, from national general speed limits to localized changes based on risks. Also discusses about challenges and from lack of resources to lack of data. Also target groups. We are not just looking at a specific set of countries. We're looking from low-income countries up to high-income countries, because the speed problem is general, is for everyone. And also the fact that this guide brings new the fact that we can provide everything you need in order to select, set, implement, and then support the speed limits that are safe for all. Because it's not enough to just put a road sign with a speed limit. In terms of what is new, as you can see, these are we wanted to really to highlight the safe speeds, 30, 50, 70, 100, that are also in line with the safe system approach. And a brief introduction around the contents of the guide on why is it important to work on speed management with the main road safety benefits, and also the broader benefits in terms of livability, environment, decarbonization. We're also talking about gender. Also, and this is what I think it's the main highlight of the guide, the principles for setting safe speed limits under the Roads for Life framework. This is a framework, and my colleagues will be talking about this framework, will be explaining in detail, that can be applied to any type of road. And that's the novelty. Also, how to implement safe speeds by developing a speed management strategy and actual implementation, and the actual interventions used to support safe speeds. You have the road sign, the speed limit sign, but what else do you actually need to make sure that drivers actually reduce the speeds and actually respect the speed that is posted. From land use planning to road infrastructure, enforcement, vehicle technology, and education, communication, and special concerns also. And across the guide, and before I just wrap it up and hand over to Eva, we have lots of examples, lots of case studies and experiences that we wanted to share with you. Quick tips for practitioners. We have myth-busting boxes, as I mentioned, and very, very nice case studies from all over the world. And my personal favorite part of the guide is around the myth section, because road safety is a challenging topic, but speed management is the most challenging in road safety. And there are so many myths around speed management. So it's, what's this misperception that we keep hearing around speed? So you'll see basically the guide, lots of myths that we are busting based on research, based on actual knowledge. And here, just one myth that I want to, I think it's one of my favorites, that's why I also put it here, is the fact that whenever we talk to politicians, whenever we discuss about, let's lower the speed down, we always hear back from our stakeholders where actually people want higher speeds. The reality is that actually citizens living in that specific area, they don't really want high speeds. And we've seen this, I've seen this in many countries where citizens, especially in front of the roads in their houses, they come up with measures to slow speeds down for their own safety. And if you ask a policymaker regarding a school, regarding a speed in front of a school, if you have 50, 60 kilometers per hour, would you feel safe? Would you feel comfortable to let your child walk to school on that specific road with that specific speed? And I think that's one of the most important part, especially knowing that road safety, road crashes are the #1 killer for young people 5 to 29 years old. Best way to address this, do a survey. Do a survey to convince yourself that actually people do want lower speeds. And I want to invite Eva over to tell you a bit more regarding the principles for selecting safe speeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you, Alina. Good afternoon from my side. I'm so happy to be here today. I can't tell you, because what I will do right now is to present you our baby. Our baby, it was a hard and difficult birth, but now it's the greatest baby of all. And why is that? Because it has at its heart something that's called the Roads for Life framework, and a very specific set of key principles on how to select safe speed limits. And you can see them right here. And how this image is designed is not a mistake, because you see safety for all is the guiding principle. That's why it's big here. And safety for all means safety not only for people driving in a car, but safety especially for the most vulnerable on the road, for pedestrians, for cyclists, for children, for the elderly who walk, who cycle, who play. So this is the most important principle we choose, but there are 3 other also important principles. Community well-being, for example. So we set up this Roads for Life framework with the communities in mind, with livability in mind, with health in mind, with the environment in mind, because we know bringing speeds down is not only a road safety issue, it's an issue of creating more livable communities and improving health and the environment for all people around. Predictability, this was already mentioned. We try to focus on safe speeds that actually are predictable, that your road users can understand, because they are clear and they are consistent in different types of roads. And we are focusing on network availability. Network availability, this means that you should take a network-wide approach in setting speed limits that covers safety as well as efficiency, functionality, And here again, not only for the motorized traffic, but for all road users. We want a road network that is functioning, that is efficient, and that is safe, also for cyclists and also for pedestrians. So this is where network availability comes in. So this is the 4 key principles we saw. And as Claudia already said, when we really jump into the chapter of selecting safe speed limits, we have one thing always in mind, and this is the safe system approach. And within the safe system approach, it's clear that the safe system approach knows something that we know as the safe system survivable speeds. Because we already heard, we as humans, we are extremely vulnerable. We only have a certain very limited ability to actually withstand forces when a crash occurs. And these limited forces depend, of course, on the type of crash we are involved in. And we see the safe system's survivable speed, if we have crashes between cars and vulnerable road users, is a maximum of 30 kilometers per hour. And this is why so many cities and communities all around the world try to push this 30 kilometers per hour speed limit, because they want to protect their road users, they want to protect their pedestrians, they want to protect their cyclists. If we look at roads where we have side-on crashes between cars, this would be very likely roads with intersections in urban areas, for example, even if there are not many pedestrians or cyclists. Here the safe system survivable speed is 50 kilometers per hour. If you look on roads where frontal or head-on collisions between cars are possible, it's 70 kilometers per hour. And only for roads where we have no likelihood of side-on or frontal crashes between cars, we could go up to 100 kilometers per hour. Why 100 and not more? Because we know from some countries that even have higher speeds, because we say, of course, besides road safety, we also need to integrate environmental issues, and this is why we think 100 kilometers per hour, even on roads that are designated motorways, access controlled, should be the speed to go. So why did we think that it would be necessary to even come up with a new framework for selecting safe speeds? This is because we have a situation right now in most countries of the world that focus their road classification system on road hierarchies as a basis. These systems, these road classification systems, were developed at the time where the sole focus of transportation planning and of road design was actually on motorization and on motorized traffic. So we think in the 1960s, 1970s, where we said we need fast motorized transport. But these days are long gone, but the classification systems are still here. So we are now in a situation where we neglect often the safety of the most vulnerable road users. So what we would actually need would be a comprehensive classification system for speed limit setting that matches the road use with the speed limit and the infrastructure that's actually on the road. A good example would be the Netherlands. They have been trying for many decades until now to put such a comprehensive classification system into place and build the right infrastructure on certain types of roads to keep all road users safe. But we know that in many countries around the world, classic traditional road classification systems exist, and these comprehensive systems simply are not there, because the implementation of such systems requires a vision. It requires a long implementation period. In the Netherlands, we are talking about 30 years, 35 years, 40 years that they have been implementing these issues until now, and they require adequate funding to protect all the road users on the road. So we said what to do in the meantime. We know that in many countries, a highway is always a highway, no matter where it runs, in the rural area or through a village, through a city. And when a road is classified as a highway in many countries, this leads us to speed limits of 80 kilometers per hour. And we heard from all the speakers that this is simply too high. So this is where our new framework comes in. And this is the Roads for Life framework, and we developed a framework for urban and for rural roads. And you see, it's a matrix framework. You can see it right here, that we have on one hand the movement of people and goods, and on the other hand, we have the presence of vulnerable road users. And why is this so interesting? Because this matrix structure combines both needs people have on roads. Roads are there for movement, but roads are also there for people, for the people who live there, who walk there, who play, who go to school or to work. So these two needs need to be integrated. And the most important thing is that I always say, this guide helps us to delete the competition between safety and mobility, but tries to bring both issues together. So these are not competing partners, but should be integrated. And this is what Alina said, speed management is not always about reducing speeds, it's about actually integrating road users, road design, and speed selection. So you see here, if we look a little bit closer on the urban roads, 30 kilometers per hour is the speed limit you should look for on most roads in urban areas where human activity is present, where you have many vulnerable road users, or even slower. You see for shared roads, the speed limits should go down to 10 kilometers per hour. But in some exceptional areas, for example, on access-controlled urban motorways, you could go up with the speeds to around 80 kilometers per hour. Why not higher? Because in urban areas, you always have the issue also of the environment and of very heavy traffic flows. And we know that 80 kilometers per hour for an access-controlled urban motorway is the highest possible speed. What's clear is that in urban areas, besides access-controlled motorways, you should never go higher than 50. And wherever vulnerable road users are present on the road, you should never go higher than 30. We did the same for the rural road network, and I think this is the most important thing I want to underline in this presentation, because these are areas that are often forgotten. And this is what we see here and what we call rural human activity roads. So also on rural roads, we often have situations where we have linear settlements, where we have hamlets, where we have roadside training, bus hop-ons and hop-offs, and these are forgotten simply. We have a highway that runs to a hamlet, 80 kilometers per hour, trucks there, cars there. So we explicitly said we have to take care about these types of roads. And it's clear if there are schools, if there are people, children playing on the road, also here 30 kilometers is the speed you should look for. And this is true especially for this stretch of road that runs through a village. Afterwards, of course, you could increase the speed. But this is not reflected by the traditional road classification systems. And I really invite you to dig a little bit more deeper in the guide and try to understand this framework, because it will help you and us to save many, many lives. And I will give the floor to my colleague, to Siba, who will continue from that onwards.
Thank you, Eva. So the big question here is, how do we translate this, what Eva just introduced, on the ground? How do we realize these safe speeds on our roads, in our cities and towns? It definitely takes more than just a speed sign, and you see the picture here speaks for itself. We need to have a full strategic approach that is evidence-based and is supported by effective speed management interventions. Starting with the strategic approach, we have here an ideal speed management process where we recommend in the guide that for any process of safe speed limit selection and implementation, it should be backed and aligned to an existing national speed management strategy. The aim or the goal is to have a general vision and a clear vision and set goals that can be monitored and evaluated and followed, achieved eventually. Now, having this national speed management strategy should not be an obstacle in cases where a national strategy does not exist, or the national strategy does not align with the safe system approach that we are recommending here. Then cities and states and regions are invited to develop their own speed management strategy, or if time is of the essence, then they're working on a targeted project to set safe speed limits, then they should go ahead and treat it as a standalone project, and then go back and develop based on that a speed management strategy and inspire other regions and the national level as well. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the process of developing a speed management strategy. We have here a typical sequence that we're recommending in the guide of how to develop a speed management strategy. However, this is not set in stone. Depending on the local context and needs, cities or regions can move these, switch these steps around. But an essential first step is to assess the existing speed management status, looking at the legal frameworks, organizational frameworks, at the design and engineering codes, the status of speed management education and enforcement are really important. The goal is to identify any gaps and target specific speed-related problems within the region we're looking at. Once the legal and organizational frameworks have been identified and clarified, then the organization that's leading this process should categorize the road network, the full road network, and define different road types based on the Roads for Life framework that was introduced, and assign speed limit ranges that would tie into each road type. Then a key step after that is to engage with high-level stakeholders in order to establish a working group. Some of these stakeholders could be the ministries, transport, public works, justice, even health. So any ministry that has authority over a topic that impacts speed management. Now, I say the role of a working group is important to lead this process and make it smooth and achievable. However, again, it should not be an obstacle. We include a lot of flexibility in this guide because we know this should be a global guide that's tackling different countries that have different context, different resources. So in cases where the different stakeholders for whatever reason, there's high bureaucracy, lack of communication, lack of interest, they cannot establish one working group, then any party or parties of these that is willing and available and interested in this topic should go ahead and lead this process, and along the way bring in the other partners in this process. Another step, and we heard about it from the previous panel, is gaining political support. This is very important, and I'll get into detail in a minute. Then after that, we have, of course, implementing and promoting the strategy, and after monitoring and evaluating, which are two steps that really, I wouldn't call them steps towards the end. They start from the beginning of the process to the end. Monitoring and evaluation should happen from the first day and throughout, and happen throughout the year. An adjustment to a strategy, it should be a living document, really. We've heard and you probably know that speed management can be a very controversial topic. Political leaders often do not want to tackle or deal with speed management. They avoid it in order to avoid any public backlash. But some cities and countries have been lucky with political leaders are aware of the high risks of speed, or aware of the need for a holistic approach to speed management. However, road safety and speed management should not be let or kept for luck. There are, in fact, tools that help us gain political support, starting with data and evidence, implementing pilot projects, and sharing results as often as possible. engaging the community and stakeholders, sharing input and firsthand experiences from any victims and those that are directly impacted by speed and high speeding. I want to share one example here. You probably heard about it, especially in the last couple of years, the city of Bogota. The city still has work to do on speed, but they have made a major first step on reducing the speed limit from 60 to 50 kilometers per hour. And this has taken the commitment of not one, but 3 consecutive mayors, which is not an easy task. And this would not have happened without the support of the tools that I just mentioned. So the city worked on data. They identified through that 72% of crash fatalities are on arterial roads. So through that, they identified a high-risk arterial corridor, which is Avenida Boyacá, where they used it as a pilot project for a police enforcement. After that, the speed management program was launched that recommended reducing the speed from urban roads from 60 to 50 kilometers per hour. And then it was followed by a number of, actually more 10 arterial corridors over 3 phases where the speed was also reduced to 50 kilometers per hour, which probably encouraged Mayor Lopez in 2020 to take this further and implement this speed limit citywide, and then later supported with 90 speed cameras in different locations around the city. The overall results so far showing that there were 21% a decrease in crash fatalities in the city, and more than $12 million in savings on health cost, human cost, and property damage. And most importantly, this has inspired a national law in Colombia to lower speed limits to 50 kilometers per hour in urban roads. Now, after this process and setting the speed limits, we have the implementation process for setting speed limits. We have 4 straightforward steps. I won't be going into too much details on them due to time, but I invite you to read the guide and learn more about them. But very quickly, first step, defining the area and doing a review to determine what's the safe speed limit. But in the cases when the whole city is the target, then this process can be faster. We can identify the complex zones for a further review, but the rest of the city, school zones, residential areas can just be set at 30 immediately without any further review, and this should be the norm. Performing gap analysis, where we were comparing that set and recommended speed limit to the current speed limit, what the road users are using currently. Whenever there's a speed over 5 kilometers per hour, then what the Road for Life framework is recommending on this type of road, then there's need for intervention to support either enforcement or infrastructure, or in many cases, both. Then we're implementing the speed limit through, adjusting the legal registries, setting, the signs, the speed limit sign, informing the public about this change, which is extremely important. And lastly, monitoring the speed limit, which is checking the speeds from the beginning of the process before making any change, throughout the change, and after, several years after, to make sure that this speed limit is still working, even if there's any change in context, in land use, and if there's any need to increase the, enforcement or change any design, then that could happen. Now, I'll hand it over to Blair to talk to us about the last piece, which is about the effective interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Siva. So, look, we heard earlier from Liz in the panel, we know what to do. We've got a really solid evidence base around the effective interventions to manage speeds. And across the board, these are extremely cost effective. So from small investments, we can get quite a large benefit. And they come across a whole bunch of different areas. So it's from land use planning, through to the speed limits themselves, supporting those limits with infrastructure, enforcement, vehicle technologies, and obviously raising awareness as well. And I think key to this, though, and it's been touched on already, is around matching the speed environment, speed limits, and the public understanding. So I'll give you an example of this. This is where the modifying the environment is a real game changer and helps us to build credibility around the speed limits that we know are safe. Go to the next slide. Great, thanks. So this is a fairly typical urban road. It's the collector road, downhill, quite wide, quite fast speeds along here. Would expect maybe 50 to 60 km per hour. But what you can't see clearly here is that there's actually a school along this road, halfway along this image here. So based on the Roads for Life framework, we'd say, where there's lots of children, human activity, vulnerable road users would prefer this to be a 30 km per hour environment. So go to the next image. So the traditional approach has been, let's just put in a sign and that'll fix the problem. So a little 30k sign there. But I think, as we all appreciate, that doesn't change people's behaviour. Unless there's a huge amount of enforcement, people will still drive to the environment. They still see this wide bit of road, and this downhill makes things faster as well. So next slide along is what we need to do, and that's really where we start to use the infrastructure to reinforce the appropriate speeds. And in this case, this can be done very cheaply through effectively a bit of paint and concrete maybe. So in this case, we've narrowed the roadway down. We may even introduce some road humps. And you can see here it's almost impossible for drivers to go faster than this desired speed. So it's absolutely key that we need to reinforce our speed limits through infrastructure, but also through these other measures as well. Next slide, thanks. So in the document, in an appendix, and right throughout the document, we have examples, but in the appendix, we have quite a bit of detail around what are the most effective interventions that we can use across all these different areas. And there's information there which describe the interventions themselves, talk a little bit about where the most useful to apply these as well. Next slide. And rather than go through them all today, I just want to touch on some of our top interventions that we think should be used a lot more. So first and foremost, increased use of speed limit signs. We've been and worked in many countries where we see there's actually a lack of information for road users about what the appropriate speed should actually be. But the road users don't know, how can they comply? Similarly, the police don't know the speed limits in some locations, and so therefore they can't do their enforcement. So very simply and extremely cheaply, we can actually bring about a change in many situations just with the speed limit sign. But as I said earlier, often we need to reinforce that. And in locations where perhaps the roads are wide and speeds are faster, we need to do more than just the signs alone. So some absolute game changers are the top right two images here, the gateway treatments for both rural roads, but also in urban environments. And again, these are very cheap and very cost effective. So some oversized signs and a bit of paint, maybe to make the road feel a bit narrower. And our evaluations on these sort of interventions show that from a few $1,000s, we can actually reduce the severe casualties in a town or a village, for instance, or in these urban environments where the speeds change by up to 40% reductions. So this is to reinforce that change in environment from high speed to low speed and very cost effective. Traffic humps, you know all about, I'm sure, and there's other very low cost interventions, raised intersection crossings, particularly for pedestrians, and also road narrowing as well. So road narrowing through constructed surfaces or even just through paint. Again, very, very cheap, very, very cost effective. So all of these and others would recommend as being highly cost effective and highly beneficial. But it's not all about just infrastructure, obviously. We need to include in there enforcement. We rely on the police to help us here. So that includes both manual enforcement, so roadside or vehicle-based, or also automated enforcement through the use of speed cameras. We heard earlier from the panel as well, these vehicle technologies. So there's in Europe now the requirement that all new vehicles are fitted with devices, intelligent speed adaptation, whereby we know the speed limit of the area that we're in. We know our vehicle speed as well, and so it gives us an alert if we're speeding over that limit. Similarly, we can install vehicle speed limiters. And I think a real major one for us in our low-income country context is the devices we can fit to trucks, buses, or maybe fleet vehicles, where we can centrally monitor the speeds of these vehicles. And for those drivers who continually speed, we can actually re-educate those or maybe take their vehicles off them. So a whole bunch of supporting interventions across all these different areas. It's been highly effective. Next slide, please. So here it is. If you want to take your phones out, here's the QR code to download the report. It's available from the website as well. You can see the link there. I'm sure we're sharing these slides after the presentations, but also you'll get other communications about this. But yeah, please download the guide. It's available from today and use that. And then the very last slide, thanks, just to thank you all for your attention. And we'd like to, I guess, open it now to Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blair. Blair is connecting with us from Australia, so it's very, very early. Thank you, and we're really sorry, Blair, you are not able to come here with us. Thank you. Said, I guess over to you for the Q&A. We took a bit more time to present and to share the ideas from the panelists. Maybe I'll just also go back to this. The launch was just today.
Thank you very much. My team likes me to moderate session these days. I think this is maybe the best I can do. But before I do that, I would like to welcome Her Excellency, Deputy Minister from Armenia, who joined us. We didn't welcome you because you came after the panel. To thank you very much, Ms. Christine Shaleshian. She was with us all this week. So hopefully we can also help you. I understand you are embarking on launching a new speed strategy and then campaigning and enforcement for speed and road safety strategy in general. So hopefully we can help also implement this strategy. I moderate, but there is a problem with that. If you don't ask a question, I'm going to start asking the question. So you, raise your hand, please. I don't know. You have more, the microphone. I think we can turn them around. A couple of people. And if you have a specific question for someone, please mention, introduce your name. And then if you have any specific person you'd like to take the answer, I'm not answering, so the team will be answering. Otherwise, I will be able to allocate your question, and then maybe the expert will stay here with the microphone. Let me start from the back, please. You raise your hand first. Please introduce yourself and the question, please.
Hi, I'm Carlos from Bogota. What about motorbikes? Well, you were showing the graphs for Bogota, but the last 3 years, we've actually had a very high increase in deaths, mostly because they're associated to motorbikes. And I wanted to know how the guide, if the guide and how they address that topic of motorbikes, because it seems to be very...
Very good.
Thank you for this excellent question. The motorbikes, these gave us a hard time. And not only us when we created the guide, because we know in pretty much all the countries around the world, this is an emerging issue. And of course, we also know that the interventions we might use to actually influence the speed behavior of car or truck drivers often don't work with motorcycles. So we have a special section in the guide on managing speeds for motorcycles. And the thing is that we know that here increased enforcement is needed to actually make the drivers behave correctly on the road. And there is huge evidence also from Latin American countries that have piloted very successful programs that showed that with increased enforcement, you can actually also, let's say, motivate, to put it nicely, motorcycle drivers to bring their speeds down.
Thank you. Matsuka?
No, I had a question for you, because you had the plan to make things happen there. But who is driving that process, both on the city level and national level? Which stakeholder have a strong interest of actually make this happen?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. As I mentioned in the presentation, the stakeholders that we're looking at here could be, several. We have the ministries, we have the media, journalists, we have the different, road authorities, regional authorities, any activists and NGOs that are interested in the topic. The idea is to bring them all together, but if that's not possible, then the strongest, the most willing, the most available would take the lead. Ideally, the road authority that is present in a city or a country that's taking the lead and bringing in all these stakeholders to go through the process. But in case the road authority is not present or not willing, then other stakeholders can really step in and take on this role. Thank you.
Arturo, you want to come in? You have the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. Arturo, World Bank. Does the guide have differential between speed limits for trucks and electric cars? Let me give you the context. This week they mentioned very much the Quito Metro. In the Quito Metro, we learned that the 60 kilometer per hour speed limit citywide and for all vehicles was way too high for loaded trucks. We were generating at the peak of excavations with 3 tunneling boring machines, 1,200 truck trips per day loaded and 1,200 truck trips unloaded on the way back. So we exposed the community to an incredible risk. This project did not benefit from the road safety safeguard that now all projects must follow. So the question is, does the guide have a differential treatment for, let's say, trucks, or does it refer to the World Bank Road Safety Guide? And electric cars are very heavy. The typical Honda Civic Electric will weigh twice the regular Honda Civic because of this range anxiety, unfounded of we need 500 miles because I cannot get to my office otherwise, which is 2 miles away. Mass. How does the guide treat mass?
Who wants to come in? I can answer the electric one for various reasons because I was involved in some of the discussion. This guide couldn't address everything on, so I can tell you the electric part maybe would need a bit more research and maybe we have to address it separately. But differentiation and trucks, who wants to address this question? Claudia?
Yeah, thank you very much, Arturo. Look, what we are trying to do is having speeds that are simple and predictable for people. And when we see that there is differences of speed for trucks, for cars, for motorcycles, that doesn't quite work. We think that in urban areas, 30 kilometers per hour, and if trucks can go at that speed, will be the safest speed. Then in the interurban roads, they can go at higher speeds. But in urban areas, that should be the speed. The main problem is really a political problem and not a technical problem, right? If we get Carlos, the motorcycles to go at 30 kilometers per hour, the problem will be reduced. But getting the mayors, not only of Bogota, but many of the cities in Europe, they are making progress. And Alex can tell us that it's not easy. We heard about Wales, and it's like pulling teeth because we have, behaviors that are very strongly, established. And what we are going to have to do is change those behaviors and really use all what is there for us. I was telling Rogier at the beginning of this meeting that in the Netherlands, where they have an institute that is only dedicated for research on road safety, they knew that 30 kilometers per hour was the speed that they should set in cities. Back in the 90s, they knew already that, and politicians said, no, in arterial roads, we cannot lower the speeds any lower than 50 kilometers per hour. Yeah? Today, they know that there are a bunch of people killed in those arterial roads. So today, the Netherlands have started to reduce the speeds in the stretches where there is high density, even if those are arterial roads. So all that very long answer to tell you 30 kilometers per hour is the scientific speed that should be set in urban areas, not to save everyone, but to save 90% of people. Now we all have to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. There is a question. You have the mic, please.
Hi, so this is Christelle. I'm representing the Technical University of Munich currently. So I was curious if the guide, so not to a specific person, but just generally, if it considers, and if not, how can it consider like emerging mobility modes? And I'm thinking in particular about like maybe scooters, like the ones that just were suddenly from one day to the other overcrowding many cities. And here I'm thinking both in terms of maybe the vehicles, like that's a new thing that they're not used to, but also the riders as vulnerable road users themselves. So like, I think, and not just about this, just generally like things move so fast and it's like how can that be considered? And like, there's not enough data on that already. So just maybe it's many questions, but I think, yeah, maybe.
Very good. Before we take another question, so we can take two at a time. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Alinani Musisia from Road Transport and Safety Agency in Zambia. Does the guide address the issue of calibration of equipment, type approval, and measurements? This is the biggest issue we have, talking about my country. The lead agency wants to do all these things. Then you would get a lot of antagonism in terms of legal issues, whether there's been calibration, and you find that the agencies responsible, like in our country, Zambia Meteorology Agency, does not have the capacity to do the calibration and the verifications, and you find that they sabotage the speed enforcement in that particular country using these legal and technical issues. That's my question.
Thank you. No, very important question. Who wants to take this too? Blair?
Said, yeah, sure. Yeah, so firstly on micromobility, yeah, there is a little bit of content in the guide on this. We're very aware it's a growing issue in many countries. So yes, there is a bit of information in there that will help you on this. And I think the reality is we don't want this mix of fast-moving micromobility devices, for instance, on footpaths where people are travelling slowly. And we are seeing some data from around the world that this is an increasing problem. But perhaps more on that issue, there is other emerging guidance specifically on this topic of micromobility. So you get a lot more answers from that new guide that's coming through as well. On the calibration, it is a big issue. So this is mainly around the issue of speed cameras and police enforcement. Again, we touch on this issue. There's a section in the guide around enforcement. And I think I saw Mavis in the audience. She helped us with some of the material on the enforcement elements of the guide. There's also another guide we have from GRSF though on, it's called Speed Camera Readiness. So perhaps Said, you can pass on the details to that document. It does the deep dive on what's required to get systems in place to set up a speed camera program. It also touches on this calibration issue as well. So there are some solutions to this, making sure that we use a regular process to make sure the equipment's calibrated. That may involve sending it overseas once a year, for instance, to get it checked, and there's a cost attached to that. But certainly there are processes to make sure that there's confidence in the equipment that we use and that the system can't be challenged.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Aliani, part of the study we are funding for Zambia, the automatic enforcement will be looking at this issue that Arif is managing from the team. So hopefully they will get a bit into the details, because that's really what that assessment is about, to get the readiness. Part of it would include technical issue like calibration, and part of it is the legal issue, as you mentioned. Lots of lawyers are ready to do something about these things, right? So, Roger, you want to come in, please?
Yeah, I think it's a question to all of us, or I don't know who in the team can reflect on that. How this guide can kind of unlock, or how this guide can be complementary to kind of a cultural change, right? And it's very complex. I worked on a lot of cities, especially cities that were supposed to be newly planned, right? And if in many places that we work in many places in the developing world, it's very difficult to overrule a set of existing policies or a set of existing engineering dictates that come on road design, right? And often on the ground, you talk to very willing and excited, young engineers that want to adopt but have no mandate to. So this kind of whole cultural change. I think how we potentially can use this guide to not only politically convene, but also to bring kind of the engineering thinking into a more kind of sensitive approach to road design and city planning. This is a major question, but this is extremely complex, right? That even the people that will want to do it face a lot of hurdles outside their mandate.
Alina, you want to take it?
I'm happy to take it and take this question. It's a very, very good question. I think from my side, pilots, it's a really good approach when we start small and then we expand and celebrate success. So very funny, because actually the 5 authors of this guide, I'm a civil engineer, but we have expertise in urban planning from WRI, legislation. So we have the authors and the team involved in preparation of this guide. We have very multidisciplinary expertise and background, so we were able to look at this from different angles. But I would think, and we've seen this in different places, and I know the work that Claudia and her team we led in Bogota also. You start small, start where you can in one section, one school, and then you scale up. We've seen this also happening, for example, in Vietnam, in school zones, where it's a culture change, and we know this cannot be done overnight. So we start with one school, we do a demonstration corridor there, one hump, one speed hump, one raised pedestrian crossing with one sign, and then we see people actually liking it, and we see interest, and we see that students feel safer, professors, teachers are feeling safer. So then it goes with the change. It's we bring NGOs in, and we bring academia in, and also I think one of the most important parts is to be able to partner with local institutions, especially with local academia. And I used to teach. I'm a civil engineer, and I used to teach civil engineering. I used to teach road engineering, and I know that for road engineers specifically, we need a major mind shift in terms of what road engineering, road safety engineering is. It's not just about putting asphalt, it's about designing and building roads, thinking about how that road is going to be used. And I think that's where we need to push for the mindset shift. Thank you.
So can I add to that just a couple of
Blair, yes,
words?
please.
It's 100% correct. These pilots and this training. So I think it's a good chance to touch on exactly that issue, that we are using this guide now as the basis for engagement to bring about that cultural change. That's amongst decision makers, but also technical experts as well. So the idea is to roll out this. We've done this already in I think 5 different countries, and we'll work with WRI to do this in more countries as well. But there is this need now to upskill and to raise awareness about the importance of this issue, but also to show very clearly it's a solvable problem, and that there's some cost-effective ways to do this. So that's the awareness raising and the cultural change amongst those who are technical or decision makers. But also there's the public as well, and many countries do this. We have programs, whether it's in schools or with with new drivers or with existing drivers, about raising awareness. But we're very, very clear in this guide about how far we can go with that intervention type. We need to make people aware about the dangers, but there's only so far we can get with awareness raising. So we must also use these other interventions, like changing speed limits, like enforcing those speed limits through infrastructure support, through police, through the vehicle technology as well. So I think this is a really important point. We need to do this change. It's not going to happen overnight, but we need to start now, and I think the guide's got the evidence base we need to make this happen. Thanks.
How we are doing on time? We are over. So we'll take 2 more questions. Sam, you introduce yourself, please.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Johnson. I work at the World Bank. I had the pleasure to work very closely with Alina and Blair over the years, and congratulations on the guide. I have a suggestion for operationalizing the guide, which maybe I invite the authors to critique. I work in China, and so everything there we think about it on massive scale. So I'm thinking about how would you apply the Road for Life framework on a massive scale. One of the a suggestion I have is, could we look at using algorithms, using GIS information based on the street characteristics to work out the places where we need to apply the types of interventions that Blair's talking about, so like speed humps, raised crossings. Of course, you need to validate that with an expert like Blair, who's a road safety auditor, but we could have an algorithm that could, on a mass action treatment for an entire area of a city, could apply these types of rules that we're talking about that the Roads for Life framework asks. Has that been done? Should it be done? Over to you. Thank you.
Well, I think Eva also wanted to mention something, but we were working with Diego, so we're working right now on an algorithm to identify, to do speed limit mapping. But I really welcome the idea, and perhaps from my side, the second edition of the guide, you'll be part of the team, and you'll help us with the algorithms for AI and machine learning to apply the framework. But I think Eva also wanted to mention something.
I have the most simple algorithm for urban areas where you don't even need a computer. Speed limits not higher than 50 if it's not an access-controlled urban motorway. Not higher than 30 on all the roads where you have vulnerable road users present on the road or crossing. So if you succeed in bringing down speed limits on urban roads below 50, or even better, below 30, everywhere where vulnerable road users are around, this pretty much on all roads or streets within cities, that's the only algorithm you need, at least for urban roads.
Claudia, then Benasser, and I think we should be done maybe, yeah?
So I think
we have, sorry to interrupt you. We have a reception afterwards, so we can continue the discussion, yeah? Claudia.
Just to add to what Eva has said, what is important is to start working with traffic management, for example, and making sure that those traffic lights are very well synchronized, right? So that we get those systems to be very efficient to move traffic and vehicles or car drivers are not complaining, right? So more than using AI to just see where do we put this or that, which can be done because, if this is a very wide road, we have in Rio de Janeiro, Avenida das Americas that has 14 lanes, right? And every 800 meters, there is a pedestrian crossing. So with AI, you can identify those crazy things and say, well, this is a highway, so how do we do here a very serious road diet and put more pedestrian crossings? But at the same time, traffic lights, they should help with really good flow. And I think if we improve those systems, will help us a lot with setting better speeds.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have two small questions. The first one is about, I don't know if did you try maybe to implement or to work on some concrete projects before to launch the document? No, that's good. The second one is, I think we have to look how can we advertise this document. It's very, very important. And for me, for Marrakesh conference, we can schedule one in the agenda this maybe to present it again. Thank you. Because if you count only on your website and so on, it's not enough.
No, definitely. So the guide is based on the experience from both World Bank and WRI. So we have lots of case studies based on the work we've done. And also we've done 5 training sessions last year discussing and testing the knowledge in the guide in Brazil, Ecuador, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Bangladesh. And also we've been discussing in. So we've been this was last year. We've been discussing the framework, getting feedback on and off. As I mentioned, over 40 international experts on speed have been reviewing the guide in the past year. So it's lots of case studies, lots of work, testing and improving. And we're happy to.
We'll take your
get
generous
more,
offer,
yeah.
so definitely.
Yeah. Thank you
we
so
will
much.
definitely take it up.
Saeed is going and
Thank
Saeed
you
is
very
going.
much. I think I would like to end up by again thanking everyone, starting with Felipe and his team, Claudia and Siba. Thank you very much. From our side, we have Alina, Eva, and Blair, and of course, numerous peer reviewer. And without the support of Bloomberg Philanthropies and UK government, we could not have done it. I think now we need to implement this, okay? So that's, I think, where we need to go. And hopefully we need to disseminate and implement. So count on us and we'll count on you, and hopefully we'll see you before Marrakesh and in Marrakesh. There is a small reception that WRI and the World Bank are inviting you to outside. So please feel at home. And then hopefully you will enjoy and have more discussion with the authors. They will be staying with you. Thank you very much.